Welcome back to the Sports Show with Woody and Les. We're being joined right now by Kevin Arnovitz. He's an NBA writer and editor for ESPN.com. Woody and I read him all the time. Kevin, welcome to the show. And want to ask you right off the bat, a lot of people are calling for the Clippers now to be blown up. What's wrong with the Clippers? Why can't they get over? We thought they got over the hump by beating the Spurs in Game 7, but they fell right back into their old ways against the Houston Rockets, blow a 3-1 series lead. What's wrong with the Clippers? Why can't they get it done?
I'm not in the blowing up camp. I mean, if you look at the starters, they were by and large effective. That's not to say they weren't dry periods. I mean, here's the problem with the Clippers, and the reason they can't get over the hump. The really great organizations, the Spurs, I think we'll put Houston in that category right now. Those are the teams that are able to manage their cap room and make those 6 to 10 roster spots really work. When you think about the Spurs, I know they're not playing this year, but in terms of, that's not an attractive free agent destination. What makes it work is there's always a Danny Green who's left for dead by a mediocre team and bouncing around the D-League, and all of a sudden becomes one of the more effective two guards in the league. There's always the Boris Diaw, who they identify, even though he almost ate himself out of the league. We know we can work with this guy. There's always a Marco Bellinelli. The Memphis Grizzlies got Beno Udrih off the scrap heap. Now, I know these aren't big names, but to me, the difference between the really elite teams and the teams, that just aren't there is the ability to really work the margins of the cap, of the roster. And when you look, that lineup, the starting lineup was a net positive. I think finished the playoffs like a +5 per 100 possessions. That's pretty good. It's not exceptional. I mean, they killed in the regular season. They were fantastic. But they just you're bringing Austin Rivers off the bench. You're bringing the ghost of Glenn Davis. It doesn't really work. And that's just the difference between elite and they're very good. And they could do this again next year. I suspect they'd be a 3 seed. I suspect they'd get to the conference semis. Maybe they'd even submit the conference finals. But the difference between, you look at Houston Rockets, half that roster is just reclamation projects. And yet, that's, Daryl Morey had the space to go out and get Josh Smith. I mean, that's the difference. The Clippers, they get hard capped and end up, Spencer Hawes in the mid-level and a bunch of, assorted pieces that aren't effective.
Thank you, Kevin. That was yesterday's story. Let's turn to the stories of today and tomorrow and the next day. I'm going to put it a different way. How in the world do the Hawks beat the Cavs? Not whether they can beat them, but what is it that they could do to beat the Cavs?
The Hawks are a very good defensive team. It doesn't get talked a lot about when all the team play and the San Antonio style motion offense. The Hawks finished the season 6th or 7th in defensive efficiency. The Cavs finished 20th. I mean, this is a very good defensive team. They play with a lot of activity. They flood that strong side. They send extra bodies. They have stopped a lot of good scorers in this league on a nightly basis, and they play a very good, just active swarming, almost Miami Heat at their peak performance in 2012 kind of defense, just really aggressive. Now they leave that weak side a little vulnerable, but they've gotten better at even that as the playoffs have gone on. So that's number one, and number two, you saw it against Washington at the very end. They're a team that can beat you with 2 back-cut layups. They don't just hand the ball, to a guy and just let him go 1-on-4. They're just really, really good at picking you apart. I'm interested because everyone's got them as sort of this improbable, they don't have a shot. They won 7 more games than Cleveland. They're ranked 13 spots higher defensively. They're healthier than Cleveland. And I just think there's a good body of work there. I know we haven't seen their best work, the January 19 in a row basketball. But they get it done, and I just think they have a really good shot. In fact, they have home court. I mean, I'm kind of picking them in 7. I really am.
Oh, that is. I would just add the one thing, and you touched upon it at the end. If they hold home court, they win the series. That would be another way that they could beat them is win on your home court. I heard them say the other night, "We're winning this for the fans," and I go, really? Those people in Atlanta who never come to the games, you're winning it for the fans? That's funny to me.
Hey, this segment of the Sports Show brought to you by Davidson's Liquors. Fans of the Sports Show can get $10 off any online order of $50 or more, so up to 20% off at davidsonsdenver.com. Just use the promo code SportsShow10.
Kevin, I have the most important question that we're going to have for you, and you are having great answers, and I know you're going to give me one on this. Who is the 7th best player in the draft?
Oh, I got to tell you, I have been so consumed. I am way behind on my homework in terms of draft. I plead the fifth. Please don't make me any. I'm going to catch up. When the Atlanta Hawks stop playing basketball, I'm going on a crash course. I'm watching film. I'm going to talk to the Chad Fords of the world. But I am right now. I know there are a couple of Europeans I really like down there.
You can say that out of here, Kevin. Come on.
That's what we talked about earlier. Is there's a couple of Europeans that look like they will fall to 7th and 8th.
That everybody's hoping will be the next Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, when in doubt and you're being pressed for questions you know nothing about, just go to the Europe.
Yeah, that was my idea of
Kevin, Western Conference Finals. Houston got waylaid by Golden State all year long. I think they played 4 games. Golden State won all 4 and won them going away, I think by an average of close to 13 points a game. Can Houston make this a close series?
I'm of the opinion, and I'm really impressed with what Houston was able to do. And I give a ton of credit to Daryl Morey. Again, you look at that roster. I mean, they have no, obviously the 2 big dogs are great, but they've just filled it out on the margins really well. But I just think Golden State's that much better than everybody else. I mean, this is the number 1 ranked defensive efficiency team, the number 2 ranked offensive efficiency team by a 1/10 of a point behind the Clippers this season. I mean, they can beat you big, they can beat you small, they can beat you fast, they can beat you slow, they can beat you from the outside, they can beat you on the inside. I mean, they can morph themselves into. You want to play small, fine, they'll match up. You want to play big, they'll do that too. I mean, they are so diverse and versatile in their different looks, their different schemes. They can beat you with motion, and by the way, they can beat you one-on-one. I mean, you can play this game all day. Whatever contrast you can draw on the floor, strategically and schematically, they got you covered both ways. And that's I just think they're that much better. And no disrespect to Houston. I mean, I have a 5-game series with a courtesy win. Invariably, Golden State every 5th game will just hit a bunch of bricks and kind of the law of variations mathematically. But by and large, I mean, they're going to beat you.
Kevin, this is a strange question, which you hadn't been prepped for, but I promise you this is a little bit more serious than the other one. There are 4 coaches still in the playoffs. They really had no head coaching experience before, and they've been around the game of basketball. And when I say NBA coaching experience, if you're the Denver Nuggets, do you take a risk? Because we've seen what former San Antonio Spurs assistant coaches are doing, and if you're the Nuggets, do you think outside? I don't want to say the box. Yeah, after conventional wisdom that you've got to go get a Doc Rivers or Mike D'Antoni. Do you think that we're seeing, as a result of the changes in the NBA hierarchy and the playoffs this year, that maybe a Steve Kerr, who's been a broadcaster and an executive, and a Blatt who came over from Europe, that there is a changing of the guard there?
I like thinking out of the box, particularly if you're going to kind of reconstruct the team. That's not to say I don't think Alvin Gentry, somebody like that, would be good. I mean, they want to run. It's the organization that likes a very agreeable guy in that spot, someone who's not going to, be too much of a diva. I mean, that was the issue before. They perceived, their head coach to be a difficult guy, but in both times in different ways, right? The Cronkies tend to like somebody who's agreeable. But to me, the Brad Stevens model is where you want to go these days. I mean, I just think it's hard to say pedigree because, as you said, one guy's a broadcaster executive, one guy's a former player in McHale, obviously from all experience. One guy's a European head coach who's one of the best brains in European basketball. One guy's a lifelong assistant to Greg Popovich, and for that matter, you can go back to Jaeger in the previous series. And there's a guy who came up through the CBA, really, got his notches there. He won 5 minor league championships. So I don't think there's a formula, but I just think you go somebody who's going to make it about the players, somebody who is willing to innovate, someone who's willing to try different things. And I think someone when you're filling that vacancy, somebody who can grow up with the team. Yeah, that's why I really like the Stevens hire. And I'd love to see them do that. Now, who is that guy? Who's the next Brad Stevens? Easier said than done, right? I mean, now you have to identify the guy. But I just think they're really people who know how to build a culture. I think it's a huge thing. I'd be really curious. Ty Lue's a guy who's now, the
Yeah.
highest paid assistant in the league, the David Blatt. A guy, and I don't know that he'd take it. He's got a really nice contract there, and historically, Nuggets aren't the most spendy team in the league on that sort of on non-players.
Yeah.
But I do think that that would be a really interesting, a guy, someone who understands prep and culture. And then again, I don't know if that's an out-of-the-box hire, a former player who's cut his teeth as an assistant. But I just think culture is important, particularly there right now. I just that you can't overstate that. I mean, I'm watching Atlanta and Mike Budenholzer, and it's just like what a buttoned-up professional group. I mean, they're just selfless. And that's another thing. I mean, they won 60 games with that. No one had them above 43. And how do they do it? I mean, they did it by and large through building a common culture, and it works.
Kevin,
Great stuff.
Kevin, we know how to get a hold of you on ESPN.com. What about a Twitter handle? What is it?
Kevin Arnovitz, KevinArnovitz. I've been vetching about the Clippers for the last 20 minutes on Twitter, so that'll be my rant today.
All right, we'll check it out. Kevin, thanks a lot.
We really appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Kevin Arnovitz of ESPN.com, and that segment sponsored by John Elway
It sounded
Chevrolet.
like he was almost talking about Melvin Hunt.
Yeah. Colorado's #1 Chevy dealer, John Elway Chevrolet.